The Hound is the big bad wolf, and is voiced by Jason, the same actor who is portraying Qrow in the series. RWBY is based on Red Riding Hood, from the same story. The Hound is going to pretend to be Qrow, and it's going to pull it off because it can transform its shape and can speak English, and it's going to fuck with RWBY. So y'all remember how a second ago I said I really wanted to do like a theory thing, and like how was I gonna do that, and it was all basically for one joke, but also if it was true it would be fucking wild and you need to build a statue in my honor. There it was. Anyway, hey, hi, ho, and howdy everyone, my name is Shannon Olshook, and welcome to something a little bit different but a little bit kind of similar. Yeah, I've wanted to do theory video sort of things for the longest time for RWBY because I like RWBY a lot. I love talking about RWBY. That's the thing that I do, is I sit around and talk about RWBY. To everyone who doesn't want me to do that. Like my existence on this earth is me just going, hey, I like RWBY, and people going like, cool. I didn't fucking ask, and I'm like, cool. But did I tell you that I like RWBY though? And they're like, no, fuck, shut up. And then I'm like, hey, did I ever tell you I like Mitru? And they're like, Jesus Christ, stop. And then Weiss. And so it goes. Point is, I like talking about things that I like talking about. If it's fucking Pokemon and RWBY and Mitru, then I can pop off for a while. Anyway, point is, I've really wanted to do that sort of thing for quite a while. The biggest problem is I'm not a fucking particularly analytical person, and also I'm kind of fucking dumb. Big dumb. But yeah, so anyway, I've wanted to do that for a long time, and there's been a couple different theories over time that I've had that I'm like, hey, I would love to talk about that. None of them are always going to be new. None of them, and that's one of the reasons I haven't wanted to talk about it, is because I don't want to step on anyone else's toes. I don't want anyone else to think I'm stepping on anyone else's toes, and I also don't want to just say the same thing that everyone's already said 100 times. I mean, I could do that. I already do that, but it's not the goal. Anyway, point is, I've always really wanted to do it, and so I figured we got to start somewhere. Now, the problem with that is, most people who are smart and do stuff like that write scripts and are smart and things of that nature. I don't do that. I used to write scripts, and you can see how well that went by watching the review caps here. Don't do that. It's bad. I had a lot of fun with those. I can't talk too much shit about them. I had a lot of fun with those series, and there's a couple bits in there that still make me fucking laugh way more than it possibly should. Still, I'm still very bad at scripting things. And I'm very bad at reading things off of a script where they sound reasonable. Like, this is tolerable to listen to. For some fucking reason, I don't goddamn know. But it is. The other ones aren't so much that thing. Anyway, there's a whole lot of preamble to say. I wanted to fucking talk about my theories. Anyway, so I figured a good thing to talk about is, of course, the Hound. A bit of a mystery to many of us at the moment. We haven't seen the rest of the show yet. We simply do not know. But there are many ideas out there. And before I do put out any more things of my own, not that I'm going to add a bunch to this, again, I remind you, do not watch my content expecting me to add anything, because I'm stupid. But goddamn am I beautiful. Anyway, point is, yeah, there's obviously some other people's takes there, and I don't want to actually take that from anyone. So if there's anything that I did get from someone else, then I would want to shout them out. Obviously, I might not be able to name the exact person, because obviously plenty of people will come up with the same ideas and shit. But just put out there that other people have clearly said it. Anyway, I wanted to talk about the Hound because the Hound is one of those things that we don't fully know really what's going on yet. We've seen it we've seen it a little bit here and there. It's been in the intro, and we got to see a little bit of it at episode 1. But then, obviously, episode 2 is when it decided to show up and be a bit of a weirdo. So yeah, obviously, it's RWBY. RWBY is one of those series that obviously takes very, very heavily from inspirations in other media and culture in the past. Obviously, Red Riding Hood, Snow White, fucking Beauty and the Beast, both at the same time. Fucking, Goldilocks, Mulan, Achilles, fucking Joan of Arc, Thor. The list goes on. Some more blatant than others. Looking at you, Oz. Anyway, point is, obviously that is very much a thing. And it's always been something that I've always appreciated and thought was very interesting. So obviously the question is looking throughout the series is, where can some things be coming from? What perhaps inspired a certain character here? Obviously, not every character is going to have that, but a lot of them will. Even just most recently with the newest characters we've had introduced in the series. All of the Aesops, all based off of Aesop's fables. Straight on down to their actions and personalities even, which is why some of them act ways that you don't like. That's because that's the point. Yeah! Knowledge is power. Anyway, point is, the Aesops, people like Pietro, obviously Geppetto, to our sweet Pinocchio herself, things like that. So obviously the question raises, is the Hound perhaps based on something? And there are legitimate questions there. Could you make an argument for it's some sort of Hounds of Baskerville reference? Watts is here, perhaps so. I don't know. It would make sense based on the name, but I don't know. I'm dumb. Did I mention that? Yeah. So I can only really go off of the ideas that I have, and I do want to establish again. I'm not expecting anything that I ever say to be right. Like, I'm a writer and I can guess shit occasionally, but also I'm just a weirdo who likes talking about things. So, and I'm very the main crux of this, the point that I mentioned about Qrow, which is kind of the big thing I wanted to talk about here. Like, I fully expect that is not the case in any way, shape, or form, but I thought it was a fun tidbit just based on the things that were there. The completely unimportant clues that were there, I thought would be fun. Obviously, anyway, back to it. So you want to know kind of what characters are based on. I would say it's reasonable to want to find that out for the Hound, because obviously, most of the Grimm have a reference from somewhere or a pull from somewhere or something like that. Obviously, the big thing you have to note is there already is a big bad wolf that is literally a fucking Grimm, and that's the Beowulf. That's why in the trailer it's RWBY killing the Beowulf. So worth noting. That being said, that is a very low class minion mob sort of enemy type of Grimm. So it's reasonable to want to try and expand that. And it's not impossible for multiple characters to have the same inspiration or shared inspirations or whatever the case may be. There's definitely arguments to be made for that. For both Blake and Adam, obviously pulling from Beauty and the Beast and Gaston, but I mean, Blake doesn't really have that. Thank God. Anyway, point is, you know what I'm trying to say. Anyway, there's that sort of thing. So it is worth noting that obviously the Beowulfs have that, but I don't think that necessarily stops the Hound from having that as well. And I don't think it's unreasonable for that to be an assumption. Is it going to be the case? Very possibly not. It's not really a wolf. It's a hound. That's why it's called what it's called. That just turns into whatever it wants because it don't give a damn. It's a strong, independent pupper, and it don't need no man. Anyway, obviously there is a lot of questions as to what the Hound is, who the Hound is, perhaps. Obviously, there's plenty of people who want to believe that it is perhaps a person turned Grimm and such. The one I hear flaunted about quite often is Summer Rose. Obviously, multiple people have made videos on that. Shoutouts to them. Again, like I was saying, I don't want to steal your shit. I didn't think of that first, but now that I do, I don't like it. Anyway, point is, obviously that is something people have wondered. There's always the potential that it's literally just a smart Grimm that she made. That's not as exciting, though. Anyway, but I think it is noticeable. It is notable to consider that, because I obviously also think that's an interesting idea. I think it's an incredibly depressing and awful idea if it is Summer Rose and not just some other person or something like that. Again, compelling, but horrible. Anyway, but I do think that is also notable for the Big Bad Wolf poll, because obviously, again, my opening to this is the Hound is based on the Big Bad Wolf, and therefore, because of its ability to shapeshift and change and its ability to talk, the idea that perhaps it could change so much that it could look like a person, or that it could pretend to be a person, even if it was like in the shadows, you know, very, very similar to the old story, like, hey, what big eyes you have, I can't really fucking see what's going on, shit like that. That sort of a thing, I actually do legitimately, non-jokingly think is a possibility. I use Qrow as the point, number one, because Qrow is the closest living, like, important elderly person in Ruby's family in her life. She doesn't have a grandmother that we're aware of. Mama Summer Rose, where you? But yeah, so I think it would make sense for that. Also, again, as I pointed out, is voiced by Jason, whose name, again, I still don't know, so I'm not going to say it. Is it Lee Bright? Something like that? Did I say at the beginning of this? Something? I don't remember how I started this. Anyway, point is, voiced by Jason, which is the same VA as Qrow, which I thought would be a fun little tidbit teasy way of doing that. Because you could have gotten William Orendorff, I believe that's the name, the guy who voices Hazel and voices all of the other Grimm because he's crazy and wild and awesome. Shoutouts to you. You could have very much done something like that, but I think the fact that they did choose they did choose Jason could be a fun way of looking at it that way. Is it? Absolutely not. But if it is, I remind you, you must build a statue in my honor and give me $1 million. I didn't say that last part before, but I did mean it, and I mean it now. Yeah, so that was the reason why I made a poll for Qrow. I do think there's other notable things. Again, the reason why I said I think the Summer Rose potential is kind of notable is you could almost look at it as maybe not only or not will it take over the image of someone else, if it was already someone else who is taken on something else's image, the Hound's image, if you will. I think that's very interesting as a concept too. A more of a complete reversal on the idea. I don't know if complete reversal, but you know what I'm saying, right? Instead of the wolf pretending to be someone else, it's someone else inside the wolf. And again, also would be a family member to Ruby and someone that matters very, very dearly to her. You know, in the original story, you have Red Riding Hood going off for her grandma because she loves her grandma so goddamn much. Go bring her these sweet cookies. And obviously, then you have, you know, one of the most important people in Ruby's life. Period. End of story. Being her mom. So yeah, I believe by that same thing is not only could you use that as kind of reversal of the story, you could use that as a weapon as well. I say it take over the appearance or the mannerisms or whatever it does to manipulate Ruby by pretending to be Qrow. But you could do that same exact thing by pretending to be her mom, especially if that was her mom at one point. I think those things are very interesting. And like, again, do I actually think it's going to happen? No. But do I think it is possible? Do I think that if that was the intention, if the Big Bad Wolf was their reference point, these are things that I could very well see happening, and I think would be really, really interesting. I remind you, when it comes to theories and anything like that, there's a lot of things that I want, but I will never be upset with if they do not happen, because I'm not that kind of person. I'm here for Ruby, not here for Shannon's Ruby. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah. Point is, I think it would be very interesting, presuming that the Hound does have its references and its inspirations in the Big Bad Wolf. Obviously, that is kind of the crux of this whole discussion. If that isn't the case, then I'm just talking here for 20 minutes for no reason. But at least I had a good time. But yeah, assuming that is the case, then I think it is not impossible for it to pull from those sorts of areas. I think it would make most sense, obviously, for it to be related to Ruby in some way because of the Red Riding Hood comparison. It makes sense that it would be a family member. The most important ones to her would be obviously her mother or her Uncle Qrow. Obviously, at least in regards to elderly members of her family, you could probably make an argument for Yang, because Yang and her are currently fighting and split up in a bit of a predicament. And I think you could also do very, very interesting things with that. Also manipulate her through her sister, someone else who is the most important person on her in the world to her. So I don't know. That was the main takeaway here, is because it was the one thing I hadn't actually seen anyone ever say. It's because obviously there was plenty of people who were like, maybe it's the big bad wolf, maybe it's this, but I never saw anyone say, maybe it's the big bad wolf, and maybe it's gonna do the big bad wolf thing. The thing that the big bad wolf does, maybe it does that. And I wanted to talk about it because I thought it was interesting. I'm sure someone else has already said it, but I hadn't seen it, so now I've made this video. So I came up with it. Point is, I wanted to talk about that because I thought it was an interesting idea. Obviously, there's plenty of ideas. Maybe it just came from the idea of a bloodhound or something like that. Maybe it did come from a Hounds of Baskerville sort of reference. There could be a tie-in to Watts or something like that as our Watson sans Sherlock. Yeah, anyway, I wanted to mention it, and I thought it would be interesting. Again, I don't know how this video is going to do. I'm sure everyone fucking hated it. I hated it. That's not true. I had a great time. But if you guys did enjoy it, please give me some love. Give me some love? Give it some love. Giving it love will give me love, so it's very nice. Point is, again, it's not scripted. It's not anything like that. I actually was able to put it out a lot more clearly than I thought I was going to, because I tried practicing beforehand, and it was a nightmare. But it worked pretty well. I just had to do 50 takes of that beginning part, and it still sucked. Anyway, I had a great time with this. I hope you guys did too. If you guys have any ideas based on what I said, if you want to perhaps take it in a different angle, do you have any reasons why you think that's completely fucking stupid? I know it is. You don't have to tell me, but feel free to if you want. Yeah, and I don't know. I had a lot of fun with this. This is one of those things that I've wanted to do a lot over time. And there's still a couple more things here and there I could talk about. Again, plenty at this point that have long since become unoriginal. But I don't know. I figured with the Hound being this new thing that we don't really understand yet, but there's potentially some interesting stuff, I wanted to talk about it. I thought it was interesting. Again, I noticed that the VAs were the same. And I thought, hey, you could use that as some sort of random shenanigans. Is it going to happen? Definitely not. But if it is, statue, $1 million. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you guys enjoyed, give it a little bit of love. Again, please tell me what you guys think down in the comments below. If you'd like to see more of this sort of thing, please tell me about that. Give it some love, and I would love to do more. As soon as I think about other things that I'm competent enough to say, there are no more things. Yeah. Thank you so much for watching. I love you all dearly, and I will see you guys next time for maybe another thing like this, or just another episode of RWBY. Anyway, bye guys. I'm gonna just keep doing this. It's a nervous tick. Help. Get me out of here. Help. Someone. Help.